Court is not fun. I don't know if you guys have ever been, but I went to court before to fight a reckless driving ticket I got. Basically, someone ran a red light and blamed me, even though they ran the red light and I had dash cam video to prove that. And when I got to court to dispute the ticket, I think I talked to a court clerk, I'm not 100% sure, but I showed him the dash cam footage proving my innocence, and then he told me, oh yeah, this makes more sense. You have a pretty clean record. We'll just drop this ticket. You don't even have to see the judge, which was great. But at this point in time, I was driving for about 3 years, and I had a speeding ticket that I consider pretty bad, of 15 over and a 65. But this guy considered my record to be clean, which is concerning. But that also means some of the most insane, reckless people end up in a courtroom on a daily basis. And today, we're going to be looking at some of the court cam footage of those incidents. And for the first case, we have Titus Nathan Colbert. And Titus Nathan Colbert was arrested in 2015 in San Diego, and he was arrested for having a 5-hour standoff with the police, which is definitely in the top 10 worst charges. And when he went to court, he cut off the judge repeatedly to say May 1st, 1776.
May 1st, 1776. May 1st, 1776.
Which is when the Illuminati was apparently created. Assuming you believe in the Illuminati. And this isn't speculation either, because he also just mouthed the words Illuminati. This guy was genuinely just insane and thought the Illuminati would appreciate him having a standoff with police officers. And the next piece of court cam footage is from 2019 in Phoenix, Arizona, with defendant Lamont Payne. And to begin with, the reason he's even in court is because of assault charges. So not a great start. And then as the court proceedings, proceeded, he got more and more angry over time, clearly frustrated, and then eventually he just punches his own defense attorney. Like, this is definitely the worst thing you could probably do in a court setting, because not only is that your defense attorney, I can't imagine a judge is going to appreciate a defense attorney being punched in the face in a courtroom. Now, the defense attorney, Vladimir Gagic, said he didn't really feel any pain, and he just tasted skin, and it was gross. And that's what he said, okay? But by looking at the footage, I disagree. When I first read the article, I really didn't expect it to look that violent, because he said he didn't feel any pain, but the footage really tells a different story. And even though he said he didn't feel any pain, after this whole incident, the defense attorney, Vladimir, filed charges and quit being a public defender after 20 years of being a public defender. So I'm gonna assume that did affect him in some kind of way, because that's pretty extreme. But punching this guy was probably the worst course of action, because he was a public defender, and he was probably doing it because he had a sense of justice. So getting punched by the guy you're defending is probably not a great feeling. And next up, we have Brian Earl Taylor, who was arrested in 2015 for unlawful imprisonment and carrying a concealed weapon. And this guy didn't do anything especially crazy or anything, just kind of weird. So at some point when he was pleading his case, he sang a song to the judge.
I'm sorry for the things I've done.
I really couldn't tell you if this would work. This gives me YouTuber apology vibes, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just jaded and don't believe any of this stuff. But either way, I really don't know if this worked in his favor or not, because at the end of all of it, through an agreement, he was sentenced to 2 years in prison for illegally carrying a concealed weapon and 18 months to 15 years for unlawful imprisonment, which is a ridiculous range, by the way. I don't know how that's possible. That doesn't seem like that should be a thing. And next up, we have Deobra Reddit. And you probably know about this one because it happened somewhat recently in 2024. And on top of that, it's that meme video of the guy Supermaning over the court desk. So he was in the courtroom trying to get probation for multiple violent charges. It wasn't just one. And he told the judge he's not a rebellious person and she should do what she needs to do. And she did do that. And he instantly rebelled by leaping over the desk and attempting to tackle the judge. In the end, everyone was overall fine. The court clerk got some minor injuries, but nothing major or life-threatening. And the next one is lower stakes than the other ones, but I still think it's kind of funny. This is Penelope Soto, and she is currently in jail for possession of Xanax, and the reason this video is funny is because somehow she got Xanax in the jail cell. And I know that's not impossible or like super difficult, but still, it takes courage to show up to your court case in jail on Xanax for your court case about Xanax. But the whole point of this court meeting was to establish bail. And when she was asked if she had any money or anything of value, she said yes, she had a lot of jewelry, but then didn't know the value of the jewelry.
It's worth money.
And people in the comments correctly pointed out, if she doesn't know the value, she didn't buy it. And no one likes this kind of person. This kind of person doesn't like this kind of person. So it's not really a surprise that when the judge saw her off, he got the slightest hint of too happy.
Adios.
And called her back.
Come back, man.
And doubled her bail from $5,000 to $10,000. The judge made the world slightly better that day. And for our next bit of courtroom footage, we have Corey Harris. And you might remember Corey Harris. And if you don't, that's fine, because we're talking about it. Corey Harris was the guy who answered a Zoom call for his court case about his suspended license while driving to a doctor's appointment.
Actually, I'm pulling into my doctor's office, actually.
It is like one of the dumbest things you could possibly do. Not only is driving the car itself a crime, answering the call was a crime. A pretty minor one, but still. Then, after this whole thing blows up, and everyone makes fun of Corey Harris for a long time because it's like one of the stupidest things you could do, Corey gets on the news and says that everything was a lie. He should have got his license back months ago.
What was your reaction when he told you so you have a suspended license? I looked at him like, you gotta be joking, because all of this was supposed to have been taken care of already.
And at this point in time during this guy's case, people were feeling like pretty guilty because we just called this guy like the dumbest guy in the world for like a week straight.
It has literally been pure OD hell.
But then it turns out that wasn't true either. In fact, Corey Harris never had a license to begin with. The only reason he had a suspended license was because he had child support due that he refused to pay. And in Michigan, if you don't pay child support, your license gets automatically suspended. And Corey Harris knew he was lying the entire time. He literally wore a trust me shirt. This is a child's idea to convince someone they're not lying. And next up, we have two sovereign citizens I have named Dumb and Dumber. And if you've never heard of a sovereign citizen before, they're a person who claims they're separate from whatever country they're in. So like if you're a sovereign citizen, you don't belong to any nation, which conveniently, under these people's own idea of how this works, they can never break any laws because they're not a US citizen in their mind. Now, I think a lot of these types are just lying and they think it might work, but back on topic to Dumb and Dumber. Why are they even in court? Well, they both had a gun possession charge, and all of that was because of a guy named KGB, and no, not the Russian spies. It's like an ex-football player. So KGB is divorced.
Your life is nothing.
And he had some issues with his daughter attending a pageant at their family church. And by their family church, I mean the mom and daughter, not him. Because yeah, he's like divorced. And he was also probably the reason the relationship ended. Because KGB sent in Ryan and Jordan, aka Dumb and Dumber, to the pageant to record it as evidence. But as you'd expect, these two were not welcome in the church, and they just refused to leave. So eventually the cops were called, and then they found out they were carrying handguns. They were carrying these handguns in the church, by the way, and after they were arrested, the defendants in this case, Dumb and Dumber, handed this letter of chicken scratch to the judge, saying he is not part of a legal society. These people are either actually brain dead or extremely ballsy and a little dumb. How do you get arrested and then demand $300,000 in no jail time? How does that work? How does that compute in your head? But personally, I think these two are faking it. I think they know that this is stupid. But the craziest part is, after all of this, they only got 1 year probation. How do you demand the court gives you $300,000 and you'll get 1 year probation? What is this? And the next court video actually didn't happen in a courtroom. It happened outside the court building. And what happened was this Rio Cavalier drove his pickup truck into the side of the building for whatever reason, probably drugs. But he then crawled out of his car and walked behind it and just stared at it for like a long time. And of course, if you crash into a courthouse, the cops are gonna know pretty quickly. And after a couple hours of that, they arrested him and gave him a DUI. And his excuse to the officers, and I'm not making this up, was he was trying to report stolen drug paraphernalia. And next up, we're going back in the courtroom, and this time, there was no defendant really at play here. He kind of just sits there and minds his business. The defense attorney, Andrew Weinstock, and the judge, John Murphy, get into like a verbal altercation.
This is an
emergency. If I had a rock, I would throw it at you right now.
And then at one point, the judge says, let's go outside and fight.
If you want to fight, let's go out back and I'll just be...
And that's just what they do? And sadly, the judge won the fight. I was kind of rooting for the defense attorney because the reason the argument even started was because the defense attorney was trying to stop the judge from waiving the rights of a trial.
I'm not waving.
All right, what do you want to do?
So I was kind of on his side. But in the end, that defense attorney won, even though he lost the initial fight, because that judge is gone. Because yeah, it's kind of crazy as a judge to start a fight with an attorney. And next up, we have Jeremy DeWitt, who was arrested for impersonating police officers multiple times. And whenever I hear about a guy like this, I'm always confused on how they keep getting outside prison. If the cop they interview in the news knows this guy, like he's a town mascot for impersonating police officers, how is he allowed to keep doing that? How did it happen so much to where it's common knowledge? But anyways, you're probably wondering, why was he impersonating a police officer? Well, it was so he could drive fast for his security company, which doesn't sound that bad, but then you find out his security company is for funerals. It's security for corpses. I again ask the question, how did this happen for so long? And the way they're catching this guy is with like Al Capone charges, like failing to report change in vehicle ownership. And next up to decompress, we have a positive story. The defendant in this court case is charged with a DUI. Right now in the courtroom, they are having a final say about the decision. And it's brought up that the defendant with a DUI never took a breathalyzer test to check their blood alcohol content levels or a blood test to test the same thing. They did neither. And you're probably thinking, the cop in this situation just straight up lied. And yes, they did. They just straight up lied, actually.
Then I want you taking him up on perjury.
Your Honor.
Will you take him up for perjury?
He admitted it was a mistake, Your Honor.
No, but he lied. He lied on a sworn
Absolutely
citation.
not, Your Honor, and that is not true.
I'm dismissing. I am dismissing this charge.
And this is how a judge should always respond to this. And for the next court cam, we have William Dennis from Hawaii. And this one is my favorite one so far because this dude is just unhinged. Off the bat, this guy's representing himself, and I'm not a lawyer, but I'm pretty sure any lawyer would tell you that's a terrible idea. And it was an especially bad idea for William over here because this guy talks in like a hyphen language, kind of like that SpongeBob episode of the Deep Sea.
Closed hyphen area hyphen court hyphen room by the unity hyphen consciousness.
The judge doesn't even have this person's name yet, and it's been 2 minutes. In real time. He actually just speaks gibberish. And after that whole ordeal, the judge dismisses his case with prejudice, which means that it can never come back. Like, it's just gone. The case is done. He can leave. But for some reason, he doesn't. But before you leave, you should check out my video where we read Google court reviews. Here's a clip. My family broke apart. 5 stars.
Yeah, 5 stars? 5 stars?
Click the answer down if you want to check that out. Like and comment down below if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new, and have a good one.